Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof.
Seeing none.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
Your Worship, item 9 in heritage, I have a shareholder's interest in an abutting property.
Thank you. Anything further?
9.1.
All right.
Moving on to section 3, adoption of the minutes, with a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated September 16th, 2019 be adopted as printed.
Councillor Ritzma and Councillor Ingram moving and seconding. Discussion? Not all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Section 4 is adoption of the addenda, which has been placed on your desk. And the motion is that the addenda to the regular agenda of council dated September 23rd to add items Section 7, orders of the day as follows. Item 7.6, which is a petition, and item 7.7, which is a proclamation, be added to the agenda as printed.
Councillor Burback and Councillor Vasilakos moving and seconding that the addenda be adopted. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Section 5 is report of the Committee of the Whole in camera session, and a Committee of the Whole in camera session was not held on September 23rd. Moving on to Section 6, hearings of deputations and presentations, and item 6.1 is an update from the Huron-Perth and Area Ontario Health Team, and there is a motion that the presentation by Dr. Sean Blaine and Catherine Hardman regarding the Huron-Perth and Area Ontario Health Team be heard.
Moved by Councillor Ingram and seconded by Councillor Bunting. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Dr. Blaine, Ms. Hartman.
That's perfect. Great. Your Worship, members of council, thank you very much. We are pleased to be here to speak on behalf of the Huron-Perth and Area Ontario Health Team application. My name is Sean Blaine. I'm a local family physician. I have Catherine Hardiman, who's Executive Director of our local agency, Choices for Change. This has been a gargantuan enterprise. We began work earlier this year to put an application in to be selected to proceed with being part of a new healthcare delivery model. We put that application in earlier this year, and there were about 170 applications across the province, and we were one of 31 which received full approval to go ahead to the next stage, which I think speaks to the cohesiveness and the great work that's already been done in this community. So we had up to 52 different healthcare organizations participating in this. I think the number, Andrew's just telling me now, the number's now up to 63. We had to basically say how it is that we think we could work together. The whole premise of this is to create a situation where healthcare can be delivered to a defined geographic population, and where those people working in that sector locally can be held accountable for the work that they're doing, and that can govern their own budget, essentially. So the ministry sent out a call for various organizations, and you see a list of various organizations there. We had representatives from all of these different sectors participating. So the key is that there is clinical and fiscal accountability. And this is really something that has not been done before. There's experience with this in the States with accountable care organizations. And I think when you look at it, care can actually be provided at a lower cost, and those extra savings can then be reinvested. That's the premise. So we are now in the process of putting in the full application, and you can see there are multiple sections here that we have to answer. Who is it that we're looking after? Well, it's essentially the entire population of Huron and Perth. Who are the people on the team? And we have very broad representation from a whole host of sectors. One of the strengths actually was that the primary care groups, and there's 9 different family health teams across this entire region that have a very long history, more than 10 years of working well together. And we had to basically say, well, where are the gaps in care, and how can we fix those? So we, over the past couple of months, there has been a flurry of meetings. I think my executive director said that, I think the latest count was 2,000 hours of meetings in various parts of these two counties with multiple people involved, and actually getting doctors out to these meetings, which is incredible. So there's been a tremendous engagement from all the different participants. There's some exciting ideas on fixing the e-health issues. And throughout this whole process, we have a very elaborate means of kind of communicating this to all the other stakeholders and to the public as we're speaking at different council meetings. So I'll let Catherine take over from here.
Good evening. So our target population, so within Huron and Perth area, so it's area because we are also including the Community Health Centre in Grand Bend, because there's lots of crossover between South Huron and Grand Bend, so they are also a part of our team. So it's about 140,000 residents, and obviously we'll continue to provide care to those 140,000 residents. But in the first year, we have three populations that we are looking to strengthen our efforts around. So one is mental health and addictions, palliative care, and then complex frail. So we have the draft vision directions that we have for our Ontario Health team. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So our vision is a sustainable, people-driven system that strives to provide a positive experience for all. And so that's our draft vision right now. And our commitments are that we will embrace change to enrich the lives of citizens and put community health outcomes first. We will create relationships based on trust and committed organizational resources towards collective improvement. We'll deliver evidence-based, fiscally responsible, and sustainable care. We'll pursue opportunities to eliminate gaps, duplication, and provide seamless care. And people will gather together for effective decision-making. So throughout our application, we've talked directly to some of these things, obviously, around how are we actually going to do care differently. That's one of the sections you would have seen where they're asking us specifically, like, how are you actually going to work differently than you do now? We have a number of strategies within our three population areas. Some are building on what we already are doing. Some are new initiatives that have come forward. The main three things that we're focusing on are communication, navigation, and care coordination, because those are the three things that are done poorly in all parts of the healthcare system, and we recognize that, and so we know that our thinking is that if we improve in those three areas, then we'll improve things like access to care, reduction of ED readmissions, patient experience within the system, and collaboration. So those are our areas that we're looking to improve, and we have a number of initiatives that we're looking for that will help improve those things. So there are some things that we felt that were going to be keys to our success. So our OHT governance is going to include clinical and physician leadership. We'll have patient, family, and community involvement, and we have had patient and client involvement since the beginning. They have been involved in all of our meetings. We've had representation. And when we had meetings for the various populations like mental health and addictions and complex and palliative, we also had client advisors from the various agencies come forward to those meetings to really give us their feedback and talk to us about how we need to redesign our system. Our governance membership will ensure consideration for skills, geography, and sector-based representation. We'll have a unified digital health plan that works from current state. We'll allow organizational fundraising to remain in the community. We'll maintain status quo funding for year one as the team establishes strong decision-making, conflict resolution, resource allocation, etc. As you can imagine, that's always the thing that people get concerned about, is what's going to happen to my funding. So no funding will change in year one at all. And obviously there are some organizations that rely heavily on fundraising. And so we're very concerned about what did that mean for them. And so obviously any fundraising that agencies do will stay with them. We'll focus on population health management. We'll develop a strong communication plan, and we'll be evidence-based and data-driven. So our timelines, as we talked about, our full application is due to the ministry on October 9th, so it's coming up fast and furious. Once our application is in, the ministry will be doing what they call, doing site visits. I don't expect that they're going to visit all 63 organizations. I expect they'll probably meet with a subgroup of our organizations and talk to us about our application. But the next steps for us, so even after October 9th, we're all, frantically working towards getting the application in. But we will be working on an agreement between the now 63 organizations that will include things like decision-making, performance management, resource allocation, conflict resolution, and information sharing. And then we will focus on building a sustainable governance structure. So we do have a governance structure to get started. That will be more like a coordinating committee that will have representation from all the sectors. We'll also have physicians. We'll also have patients and families involved on that as well. And there will be some working groups that report into that as well. But that'll be the structure. We felt very strongly we needed to have something to get us started. And then it's iterative governance as we move forward. It'll change over time. So if you want to learn more about Ontario Health Teams, there's a link there that you can go in to read. And then if you would like any information, you can contact Madeline Smith from HPHA, and she will provide you information around our local Ontario Health Team. She's been supporting our application and the team.
All right,
Anybody
questions?
has any questions?
Councillor Vasilakos.
I have a series of questions, so my apologies ahead of time. I understand what your premise is, but I'm not exactly sure that the premise was clearly laid out from the province as to the premise of what they were trying to accomplish, how and why, and a roadmap, and it wasn't necessarily based on evidence. So I'm glad to hear the words evidence used. So I have a question about integration with the larger health system as a whole. My concern is around how do you actually, as you have these different health teams throughout the province, how are they going to integrate across with each other? We have people that move between communities, and we have people that need services that are in other communities. And if there's this ends up being a patchwork in some ways without and we have yet to see an overriding structure that helps manage the integration of them. And so when you talk about things like patient access to services that are outside of our service area, when you talk about digital integration, what happens with digital integration is you have people move in and need to access a number of different services that look different where they came from, and how do you manage that kind of digital integration? So I'm wondering if you could actually comment on that piece, and then I have one other question.
There were a whole lot of questions in there.
More about the so the specific question. A lot of those were comments that related to the same thing, which is system integration across communities and across these different health teams. If they're going to be
we're pretty lucky here given the geography. But I have patients who are in Toronto who just are going to still stay my patients, even with this OHD and with this system. Nothing's going to change that way. So, and there are people who, I want them to go to St. Mary's for their stent. So if they're outside of our region, well, they're not going to be prevented from going to St. Mary's. That's going to happen. There is an overarching organization that's being set up called Ontario Health. And so that's kind of an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different groups like Cancer Care Ontario, Ontario Health Quality Ontario, that type of thing. So, these are early days. I think the important thing is that the ministry is pretty much allowing regions of the province to take control of their own affairs health-wise and kind of build the system locally that meets the needs of the people locally. And there will be, and the thing is, like right now, if there's a problem, I'm dealing, if I can't get community care for my patients, well, who do I blame now? I just blame CCAC, or I blame the LIN, because it's somebody else, right? It's some government sector. That ain't going to be able to happen anymore because it's us, you see. So if anybody's to blame, we can just look at ourselves and say, we're to blame because we haven't been able to do it. So that piece is what changes it. It creates the accountability locally. It creates the fiscal control locally. But I hear very clearly what you're saying about access to care outside. There are certain specialized services that are that can only be provided in a different region, and those are going to continue.
And so my greater issue around that is then universality, that we're accountable locally, but then how do we ensure a universal system across the province? And that's a larger issue that the province will have to deal with.
Yeah, but why should things be universal if there are certain things that are unique to this community that couldn't be done in Toronto? I mean, I live my life dealing with an Ontario government that's trying to solve Toronto problems provincially, and we deal with it all the time. And so hopefully that takes away some of that. I think the basic tenets of the Canada Health Act will always be there. Those are the overarching principles of healthcare in general. So I don't think those will change for any individual care providers. I don't know if you have anything else.
No, I don't really have anything to add to that. I mean, I would agree that I agree with you that I think there is larger issues that need to be resolved, and the government needs to be looking at that. I think it's a start, and it is very early days, and I think we'll see how that evolves. But I agree, I don't think, no one is going to be denied service outside of our areas.
And so my second question, if I may, is around, you use the term population health management and evidence and data-driven process. So that language is firmly rooted in public health, and I'm just wondering where public health fits into your organization in terms of, I know it's not part of these teams, but do you have a plan in place for working closely with public health? Because it seems to me many of the things that they do are some of the things that you're trying to accomplish within this as well. And that may be speaking as chair of the Perth District Health Unit currently, but that is something that, given the language that you're using, should probably be brought into that conversation.
Absolutely, and we did have public health involved in our initial meetings around the self-assessment piece and whether we were going to move forward with that. And at that time, they chose to not be involved in the self-assessment because it didn't make sense for them. But they have been part of the process of actually providing data and information to us throughout the whole, like through the self-assessment and now the full application. So they're very well aware of what we're doing and have been very involved in those conversations, and certainly would be part of our working groups, and certainly around mental health and addictions, around some of their preventative work that they do. I've been gathering some information around that, and they'll be part of that working group, for lack of a better term, to be able to bring that forward. So we're very well aware of that, for sure.
Okay, Councillor Britsma.
Just, it's more of a comment, so thank you very much for your work in putting forward the application, and certainly we hope for positive results from all your work.
Thank you.
Anything further? If not, thank you so much.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next item.
Item 6.2 is a public meeting under the Retail Business Holidays Act, and there is a motion that the council meeting adjourn for the purpose of holding a public meeting with respect to an application for an exemption under the Retail Business Holiday Act for 925 Ontario Street, and to reconvene at the conclusion of the public meeting.
Moved by Councillor Henderson, second by Councillor Seven. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. I'll call the meeting to order, and the purpose of this public meeting is to give council and the public an opportunity to hear all interested persons with respect to an application from Value Village, 925 Ontario Street, Stratford, to open for business on defined holidays during the designated tourism season. The order of procedure for this meeting is as follows. Staff will outline the application. The applicant will then present their application. Council may ask questions for the purposes of clarifying the application, but are cautioned not to make comments or take a position on this application at this public meeting. Then the public will be asked for their presentations, comments, and questions. The public is advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. Are there any questions as to this order of procedure? Seeing none, we'll now proceed with the meeting, and I'll ask Jody Aikens to present the application.
Through the chair, this matter is with respect to an application received from Value Village Stores operating at 925 Ontario Street, and they are requesting an exemption to allow the store to be open for business on holidays during the designated tourism season in the city of Stratford. The Retail Business Holidays Act requires retail businesses to be closed on certain holidays unless otherwise exempt. Council may grant exemptions to open on certain holidays for the maintenance of or development of tourism. And the Act requires that Council take into account the principle that public holidays should be maintained as common pause days. As noted in the application included with your agenda, the applicant is a retail thrift store, approximately 24,000 square feet in size, with operating hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. each day, with the exception of Sunday when they open at 10. They sell new and used clothing, footwear, and household goods. As per the requirements of the Act, notice of public meeting was posted to the city's official website, in the Beacon Herald, and on a previous council agenda. Notice was also circulated to Invest Stratford, the Chamber of Commerce, and Stratford Tourism Alliance, and no comments have been received to date. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is present.
Councillor Henderson.
So I had a couple. Like in there, it says that, I think it's a number 4, it says it shall be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Because you see a lot of stores on Sundays or holidays now are open longer hours. So is that really, like, should that be looked at, that timeline?
Through the chair, it's my understanding those are two separate issues, Sunday hours, and this is particularly with respect to statutory holidays
Right,
during
yes.
the designated tourism
I meant
season.
to say Mondays. Like, a lot of them are open. I didn't realize they're only open 10 to 4 on a holiday, like on that holiday.
Under the requirements of the Business Holidays Act, it's my understanding.
And my other question is, I saw the listing of the stores that are permitted to be opening. There's a lot more stores that are open, like, for instance, the mall and different things are open. Are they not required to have,
There are some, through the chair, there are some stores who are automatically exempt under the Act. Some of the requirements are if the only goods for sale are foodstuffs, tobacco, handicrafts, antiques, pharmacies are exempt. They have their own legislation. So the stores that are open may be automatically exempt.
so like Zare sells clothes, so they maybe had to apply?
Theirs is
Where food
on the
bag-
exempt
or food
list.
basics
Yes.
wouldn't, and, I see.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Jody? Representing the application is Alex Kriknicki, and I'd invite Alex forward at this time.
Good evening. My name is Alex Krnicki. I am the store manager of the Value Village store here in Stratford. As already indicated, I'm applying for an exemption to be open during the tourism season as defined by Stratford bylaws. We are able to provide tourists with the opportunity to shop in our stores and procure items they may need for their holiday with similar goods sold by other retailers such as Walmart, Canadian Tire, and Dollarama, which are already listed in the Schedule A of the bylaw that allows those stores to be open. Many of the retailers in the same plaza or in close proximity to our store are already listed on Schedule A. With an exemption granted to Value Village, tourists would have a greater selection of stores to visit on their holidays and further enhance their stay here in Stratford. We are a recognizable brand for tourists. We operate more than 300 stores throughout the United States and Canada. Many of our customers enjoy visiting multiple locations in search of a unique find and would benefit from the opportunity to visit a location outside of their hometown while on holiday. I believe we meet all the criteria for exemption, will comply with all regulations outlined in current bylaws in Stratford as well as the Employment Standards Act. And I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this application.
Any questions at this time? Any questions from council? Any member of the public having a question at this time? Any member of the public? If there's no members of the public wishing to ask questions and no members of council, thank you.
Thank you.
City Council intends to consider this application at a future Finance and Labor Relations Committee meeting where members of council will have an opportunity for full discussion of the application after reviewing comments received from the public at this time. If anyone would like to receive further notice of this application, please leave your name and address on the form of the table immediately adjacent to Councillor Gaffney, and this public meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Next item.
Moving on to Section 7, Orders of the Day. Item 7.1 is a proclamation, and there's a motion that City Council hereby proclaims October 2019 as Toastmasters Month in the City of Stratford.
Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Vasilakos. All those in favor? Councillor Gaffney.
Just a little heritage piece, Your Worship, so that nobody from the Toastmasters gets up during one of their speeches and says they live in or are from the town of Stratford. They should be aware that Stratford has been a city since the year 1885.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Item 7.2 is a resolution, and organizers from Cirque Smith have requested designation of their aerial arts theatrical performance on Friday, October 11th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Stratford Rotary Complex as municipally significant for the purpose of obtaining a special occasion permit liquor license. The health unit and city departments indicated no concerns with the request, and there is a motion that City Council hereby designates the Cirque Smith aerial arts theatrical performance as having municipal significance for the purpose of obtaining liquor licenses from the AGCO, subject to the necessary permits being obtained, compliance with the city's municipal alcohol risk policy, and the required certificates of insurance being provided.
Thank you, Councillor Seven and Councillor Burback, moving and seconding. Discussion? Not all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Item 7.3 is a resolution, and there is a motion that the resignation of Mallory Evans as a citizen representative to the Stratfords of the World Ontario Committee be accepted.
Councillor Clifford moving, second by Councillor Ritzman. Discussion? Not all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Item 7.4 is a resolution regarding traffic and parking bylaw amendment, and there is a staff recommendation that Schedule 1, no stopping, of the traffic and parking bylaw be further amended by including the provisions listed on the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Bunting, second by Councillor Burback. Discussions? If not, all those in favor? It's carried.
Item 7.5 is a resolution regarding the Grand Trunk Community Hub grant application budget, and there is a staff recommendation that City Council approve a budget of up to $55,000 for completion of work on the Grand Trunk Community Hub grant application, and that the acting CAO be authorized to spend up to the budget amount for additional work on the city's application as necessary.
Councillor Clifford and Councillor Henderson. Discussion? Councillor Seven.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the potential gain is if the grant's awarded and who applies and what the chances are of being successful. Just
There's $1 billion available in the province of Ontario. Our application would be for $10 million from the province, which would trigger a $12.5 million grant from the federal government.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? If not, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried.
Moving to your addenda, item 7.6 is a petition, and a petition was received in the clerk's office calling on City Council to declare a climate emergency to match the aim set by its sister city, Stratford-upon-Avon, to be carbon neutral by 2030, and to make this a binding declaration which includes current plans, policies, and projects within a climate emergency framework. And there's a staff recommendation that the petition from Anne-Marie Reimer received September 20th requesting declaration by City Council of a climate emergency be received, and that the petition be referred to staff.
Councillor Gaffney moving, seconded by Councillor Ritzma. That's for climate emergency petition. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Henderson.
I had a comment about this. The reason it has to be referred to staff is because you have to be able to come back and tell us if we can be carbon neutral by 2030. Is that the reason?
Through you, Worship, staff did a preliminary search and have determined other municipalities in Ontario have declared climate emergencies, so we would like the opportunity to bring back that wording so that if council chooses to make a climate emergency declaration, that we are being consistent with other municipalities as well.
And will that take a long time? Do you know what timeline for that be?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, it is my expectation that this can be brought back for October 15th.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Vasilakos.
And just in terms of what comes back to us, I think that we have an ethical observation to look at these, but I think we also need to actually be able to link any declaration that we make to an actual action that we take and how we're going to operationalize it. So I think it's really important not to just look at the wording that everybody is using, but having a look and having a response back on, so what is that going to look like for us? What is it going to look like for the city of Stratford? How are we going to operationalize this declaration that we can make? Because we can make a declaration and it can sit on a shelf and go nowhere. And I'd rather make a declaration that gives us actually an idea of how we're going to actually do what we say we're going to do.
Right. That's noted. Thank you. Anything further? If not, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? And it's carried.
Item 7.7 is a proclamation with a staff recommendation that City Council hereby proclaims October 1st, 2019 as International Day of Older Persons in the city to honor all senior citizens in the city and area, and that the United Nations flag be flown at City Hall for the month of October 2019.
Moved by Councillor Clifford, second by Councillor Burback. Discussion. Councillor Gaffney?
Me being the new guy, my question may be moot, but do we not have a restriction on how long we can have non-flags of Canada and banners hanging on the City Hall?
Normally it's a month.
Was it? Okay. Thank you, Your Worship.
We do it for Heart and Stroke Month. We've done it for Arthritis Month. Thanks. Anything further? If not, all in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried.
Moving on to Section 8, business for which previous notice has been given and there was none scheduled. Moving on to Section 9, reports of the standing committees. Item 9.1 is the report of the Infrastructure, Transportation, and Safety Committee, and there are 4 items listed for consideration as follows. Item 9.1.1, that Council approved the tower site agreement with the Avon-Maitland District School Board to permit their 2 antennas on the Foreman Water Tower for 2 years, and that the Mayor and City Clerk or their respective delegates be authorized to sign the agreement. Item 9.1.2, that staff review the request to install 4-way stops at the Bedford Drive and Glendon Road intersection and at the Graff Avenue and Glendon Road intersection, as well as review options to increase pedestrian safety on Glendon Road. Item 9.1.3, that staff review the West Gore Street and Downey Street intersection to investigate pedestrian safety. And item 9.1.4, that the matter of requesting staff to review the ability to control the use of leaf blowers in this. Item 9.2 is the report of the Planning and Heritage Committee, and there are 3 items listed for consideration. Item 9.2.1, which is the planning report for a draft plan of subdivision, with a motion that Council pass a resolution that no further notice is required under the Planning Act, that the application to amend the zoning on the subject lands be approved for the reasons listed, and that the plan of subdivision application submitted by Sifton Properties be approved pursuant to the Planning Act, subject to the conditions listed. Item 9.2.2 is a planning report regarding a zone change application, that Council pass a resolution that no further notice is required under the Planning Act, that the application to amend the zoning on 379 Romeo Street North be refused for the reasons outlined within the planning report, and that the staff recommendation to rezone the subject lands be approved for the reasons listed on the agenda. And item 9.2.3, which is also a planning report regarding a zone change application, that the zoning of 58 Griffith Road West be changed from a general industrial I-2 zone to a general industrial special I-2-35 zone, and that the request to require 13 parking spaces for a religious institution in the existing building be refused for the reasons listed on the agenda.
Okay. Councillor Ingram, you'll move the agenda, seconded by Councillor Vasilakos. Councillor Gaffney, you'd like 9.2.1 taken separately?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So we'll deal with items 9.2.2 and 9.2.3. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Item 9.2.1 has been moved and it's been seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried, and the record will show Councillor Gaffney did not take part. Next item.
Section 10 is notice of intent. There was none scheduled. So moving to Section 11, reading of the bylaws. There are 5 bylaws listed for consideration as follows. Item 11.1 is to amend the zoning bylaw with respect to zone change application Z06-18 for a subdivision development in the city. Item 11.2 is to amend the zoning bylaw with respect to zone change application Z06-19 to amend the future residential special zoning on 379 Romeo Street North. Item 11.3 is to amend the zoning bylaw with respect to zone change Z08-19 to rezone the lands known municipally as 58 Griffith Road West. Item 11.4 is to amend sections of the traffic and parking bylaw for housekeeping amendments. And item 11.5 is to authorize the execution of a tower site license agreement with the Avon-Maitland District School Board for a 2-year term. And these bylaws could be taken collectively upon unanimous vote of council present.
Okay, Councillor Gaffney, you're going to declare an interest in bylaw 11.1
I would, Your Worship.
for the same reason you stated earlier?
Yes.
Okay. So can I have a motion to take bylaw 11.2, 3, and 4, and 5 collectively, please? Councillor Ingram and Councillor Vasilakos. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. So we'll take those bylaws collectively. And for the first and second readings of bylaw 11.2, 3, 4, and 5. Councillor Henderson will move first and second reading. Councillor Bunting will second it. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Third and final reading, Counselor Gaffney and Counselor Ritzma, moving bylaw 11-2, 3, 4, and 5 a third and final time. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Bylaw 11-1, is there a mover and a seconder for first reading? Counselor Clifford and Counselor Henderson. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Bylaw 11-1, third and final reading, moved by Counselor Bunting, seconded by Counselor Vasilakos. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And the record will show Counselor Gaffney did not take part in the vote.
Section 12 is the consent agenda. Are there any items listed on the consent agenda to be considered by council?
Counselor Sabin?
I'd like to, item 130, endorse the letter from the Township of Larder Lake requesting that the Premier and Cabinet Ministers offer electronic delegation options.
Thank you. A seconder for that. Counselor Ritzma? Discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Anything further? Counselor Vasilakos?
I was going to move to talk about the Edmonton Declaration for the mayors and the climate, but since we already did the declaration earlier, I would just like to refer that item to the staff to look at the same time that they're looking at the climate change declaration.
Sure. Referral motion moved by you and seconded by Counselor Ingram. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Counselor Burback?
I'd like to recommend endorsement of CA 2019-31, a resolution from the Township of Zora supporting the continuation of the UTRCA programs and requesting information on mandatory and non-mandatory programs.
Thank you. Mover, Counselor, or seconder, Counselor Vasilakos. Discussion. Counselor Henderson?
I was wondering if we should make up our own resolution and send it in support of all they do for the city and outline some of the things like the crib projects and planting of the trees and educating of the school children and things like that. I'm just wondering if the city should be doing their own resolution.
We could do it two ways. We can endorse this one, and if you'd like to bring one to the October 15th meeting, we'd be very happy to look at it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Counselor Ingram?
I have a question about 2019-136, and it's the City of Kitchener regarding...
If we could, I'm going to finish the vote on the previous one. If there's nothing else, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. City of Kitchener regarding packaging of single-use disposable wipes and related concerns. Do we have an issue with our pipes and single-use disposable wipes?
Through the chair, it hasn't been identified by staff, but it's something we would support because it could cause potential problems down at the plant. Probably more cleaning when at the bar screen that has come to the plant, but I haven't heard of any blockages in our system right yet or at our pumping stations, but there's a potential to cause problems there.
Okay, based on that information, I would like to endorse CA 2019-136, please.
Thank you. Counselor Ritzma, seconded. Discussion. Not all those in favor? Opposed, any? That's carried. Thank you.
Section 13 is new business. Are there any new business items?
Counselor Clifford?
I'd like to ask the Director of Infrastructure the timeline on the opening of Quinlan Road. I thought it was going to be open early in September, but the pavement seems to be done, but people are driving on it, so I'm just curious what the timeline is.
Yeah, through your worship, the original timeline was end of March, but I'll follow up. The road does look open to me. I know there was some work that we're doing on some manholes, but I'll follow up with staff to see if the contractor get that road open.
Thank you. Anything further? If not, a motion to recess to reconvene in Planning Committee. Counselor Sabin and Counselor Ingram. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. A brief 3-minute recess.
Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, there are no delegations scheduled, so we'll move on to item 4.1, which is non-designated properties for the Municipal Heritage Register. I believe this is fairly straightforward. Does any member of the committee have any questions at all? Councillor Vasilakos.
I just had a comment that I really like the format of the, showing a photograph of the house and a little bit of description. I just like the format of the registry and what it looks like and the amount of information that it gives. I thought it was well done.
Councillor Gaffney, did I see your hand?
You did. I'll make the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ritzma?
And I have a question as well,
Yes.
if I could. Just, and perhaps I missed it, with regards to the public house to educate and inform, has that date been set?
Mr. Lunison, would you like to come forward, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the public open house has already taken place. It happened on June 20th. There were about 20 people that attended, and there was a question and answer period, so it has already taken place.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
And will this be posted to the website?
Mr. Lunison.
Through the chair. Yes, that is the intent, that they would be posted on the Heritage Stratford website.
I thought it was very nice how it was done up with the picture, the year, and then the description, because when I was going through it, I thought, oh, am I going to have to look all these addresses up? And it was great. Nice job.
Councillor Burback.
So just a general question about the purpose of the registry. So it's different than a registered property in that there's no restrictions on the homeowners, or how does that work exactly?
Through the chair, the only restriction is that they can't demolish the building right away. They would have to inform us that they would like to demolish it, and the city has 60 days to convince them otherwise, to document the building, or so on. So that's really the only restriction for being a non-designated property on the registry.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from committee? All right, the motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And I will take a motion for adjournment, please. Councillor Bunting and Councillor Vasilakos. All in favor? Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
Actually, it's Councillor Bunting tonight.
You're up, buddy.
We're taking turns every
That's
second
right,
time.
yeah.
Thanks.
I'd like to call the Social Services Committee to order. Any declarations of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof, excuse their voice. Seeing none. Section 3, subcommittee minutes, they're there for your information. Delegations none scheduled. And 5.1, Britannia Street Affordable Housing, Phase 2, and there's a staff recommendation there. Councillor Ritzma, seconded by Councillor Burback. Councillor Gaffney.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Do we know what kind of financial commitment this is we're gonna be making to this, if any at all?
Through the chair, at this time we are looking at the funding options for 2020 that can include federal and provincial funding, and then we will bring a report back to look at what the commitment would be.
Okay, thank you.
Motion on the floor. Any more questions or comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. 5.2, Reaching Home Canada's Homelessness Strategy. And again, there's a staff recommendation there. Councillor Burback, Councillor Vasilakos. Any questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Number 6.1, City of Stratford, Ontario Work Service Plan. And again, there's a recommendation from the staff there. Councillor Henderson and Councillor Ritzma. Any questions or comments? Councillor Burbank.
All right, I just wanted to mention that in this service plan, or the thing that he goes, or the information that's given talks a lot about the intercity transit and how important it is for people that are looking for jobs using this program, that they be able to get either to work outside of the city or come from outside the city to within Stratford. So I just kind of like to link that up, that we're looking at the intercity and intra-city transit and how important that program is for something like this.
The survey was released. The survey was released and it's online.
Apparently the survey was released and it's online. Thank you. Any other further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And 6.2, introducing my benefits. And again, a staff recommendation that the report titled Introducing My Benefits is received for information. Councillor Vasilakos, Councillor Ingram, any questions or comments? Councillor Henderson.
I just think this is going to be a great benefit for anybody that is looking for some help, and being able to look up things that have happened in their past, to be able to look to upload their data there, and they're going to be working with the client. And I think we had a demonstration of how it's going to work. And the one thing I notice is a lot of people, sometimes lose their papers or have problems. They can go online and look it up, and they'll be able to access it at the office. They'll be able to go to the library if they don't have a computer at home. I think it's going to be a great asset.
Thank you. Did I call the question? No. Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Adjournment, someone, Councillor Clifford and Councillor Gaffney. All those in favor? Thank you again. Too many sweets.
Call to order the Finance and Labor Relation Committee. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? None noted. Item 4.1, the draft 2018 consolidated financial statement. The subcommittee's recommendation that the draft 28 consolidated financial statement be approved and the 2018 audit report be received for information. Moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Burback. Any questions or comments? Councillor Henderson.
I don't know if it's just me, but I thought it seemed like it was a bit more informative this time. Being able to read through it and seeing all the different things, and I just found it more broke down. I found it very interesting.
Yes, it was comprehensive. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Call a motion. All in favor? That's unanimous. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Ingham, Councillor Bunting, all in favor. Thank you.
Council reconvene, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest made at standing committee and to be restated at the reconvene portion?
Seeing no hands.
Moving on to section 15.2, which is the committee reports, and item 15.2.1 is from the Finance and Labor Relations Committee. And there's one item listed, item 4.1, which was the draft 2018 consolidated financial statements. And there's a motion that the draft 2018 consolidated financial statements be approved and the 2018 audit report be received for information.
Councillor Clifford and Councillor Ritzma moving and seconding. Discussion. Not all in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried.
Moving on to item 15.3, which is reading of the bylaws, and there is one final bylaw listed for consideration, which is bylaw 11.6, the confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Vasilakos and seconded by Councillor Ingram for first and second reading. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Third and final reading. Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Burback. Discussion. Not all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Motion to adjourn this evening's proceedings. Councillor Bunting and Councillor Henderson. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.